Hey guys, Trouble T Cat here, recording for the Zombie Arcade. You're watching Meet the Weapon, and today we're looking at the ACWR. This is the first video of the ACWR, so you see me here using it with no attachments. Now, it's kind of hard to find information about this gun for two reasons. First of all, the gun this is based on is a very new weapon, and there's not huge amounts of information widely available about it. And secondly, the specifics of what Battlelog tells us about what they were going for with this gun doesn't actually quite match up with the real gun the ACWR is based off of, so I don't know if this is supposed to be like a future weapon or something. I mean, we know Battlefield 3 is set in 2014, so this could be some sort of hypothetical future weapon or something. I don't know. But as far as I can tell, this gun is based off of the Remington ACR, ACR standing for Adaptive Combat Rifle. The ACR was originally designed by Magpul under the name Masada Adaptive Combat Weapon System, and it's now in production by Remington, with some models of the rifle being produced by Bushmaster. The ACR incorporates design features from a lot of existing rifles, and it was meant to be a replacement for the M16 in the U.S. Army. It's been considered to replace the M4, but it hasn't been selected, and apparently the design is still undergoing a lot of fine-tuning because there's been, faults and reliability issues and a lot of stuff like that with the ACR that have been sort of holding it back. The estimated rate of fire of the ACR is somewhere between 800 and 900 rounds a minute, although apparently it hasn't been exactly measured yet. The weapon is capable of semi-automatic and fully automatic fire, and supports a wide variety of different barrel lengths, presumably in the game with a fairly short one since it's filling a carbine role. The gun has a collapsible stock, and it's chambered in 5.56 NATO and also available in 6.8 Remington SPC. Where things get a little bit weird with this gun in the game is that Battlelog tells us that the ACWR in the game uses the 6.5mm Grendel round, which the rifle isn't actually available in currently. Remington doesn't offer that, and in fact, as far as I can tell, isn't a round that's had any kind of military use whatsoever thus far. There aren't very many weapons being produced yet using 6.5mm Grendel. It's a pretty new round. This also explains the 26 round magazines you have in game. 26 plus 1 in the chamber gives you the 27. You see in the bottom right there a lot of times. The 6.5mm Grendel cartridges are the same length as 5.56 NATO rounds and can be loaded into standard Stanag magazines and are designed for that purpose. However, due to the added width, only 26 of them fit inside one of those Stanag magazines, not the standard 30. So, from my reading, it sounds like the 6.5mm Grendel round, the Grendel round there, should have a bit more punch behind it than a 5.56 NATO round, which explains why this weapon has greater damage at range than other carbines, but not really its lower maximum damage at close range, which allows us to transition to speaking about the gun in the game fairly well, smoothly there. In the game, this is kind of an interesting carbine, and I like that they've gone something a bit different here. They didn't just decide to make it, the standard 5.56 ACR, and make it have, similar ballistics and stats like that to the other carbines in the game. I like that this gun it does actually have quite a bit of a different feel to it. And the reason for that is, it fires very fast, or, quite fast. It's got very low recoil, and interestingly, it does lower damage at close range than the other carbines. It does 20 maximum damage instead of 25, which, as I said, isn't necessarily 100% realistic if they want this to be using this 6.5mm Grendel round, but the upside is that this has a higher minimum damage than the other carbines at 16 instead of 14, so it actually takes, less to kill at distance with this gun than with the other carbines. So, I mean, ultimately you end up with this gun that this is a medium to long range weapon like the Scar H and the G3A3, except instead of, like, those guns being designed around, yeah, it's good for medium to long range because it has a low rate of fire, high damage per bullet, but the downside is, you need to control it carefully because it's got that low rate of fire and it's got a lot of recoil and stuff like that. This is sort of a weaker, fast rate of fire gun for medium range that works at those ranges because it still does reasonable damage at medium range, although it's still less than assault rifles, and it has very controllable recoil, which the end result means that this is a very, very good gun to full auto at range. The Scar H and the G3A3, for example, are great at long distance. Scar H particularly relevant as it's a carbine. But that's in single fire. You want to use single fire and rely on the big punch behind those bullets to get the job done. With this gun, at medium range, it's more about the fact that you can put a lot of shots on target quickly, a lot more quickly than most other guns at those kinds of ranges, because of just how easy this thing is to control in terms of recoil. So, I mean, do I like it? Well, kinda. It feels at times like it's shooting candy, especially close up, and that can be annoying. But I mean, it can be a lot of fun to use at the same time. I like the way the weapon looks and sounds. I like the way it feels. That very low recoil, but there is sort of a noticeable little bit of a punch to it at first. And I mean, it's cool. I like the way it feels to use. The low damage can be a real kick in the teeth at times, but if you can sort of stick to medium range, you tend to do okay because your gun is stronger the ACWR is stronger at medium range than a lot of other weapons. So you tend to do okay if you can stick to those medium ranges, even if it is going to be hard to use up close. So I mean, at the end of the day, it actually is one of my preferred carbines at the moment, which is a weird thing to be saying because initially I hated it. But I think a lot of it's to do with just the way it feels, which I really enjoy, and the fact that a lot of the carbines that I used to like, I don't like so much anymore. I've been feeling not that great lately. I do like this thing. I also think it's maybe a tiny bit underpowered. I think maybe this gun could use a small buff in the game, and the reason being that it seems like with such a small clip size in particular is unnecessary. It doesn't need to have. I mean, this gun again, if it wants to be using that 6.5mm round, it doesn't really make sense from a realism standpoint. But I think this gun would be more balanced if it had the same 30-round mag as the other carbines do, and that's about all I do to it. I don't think that you should. This gun really has an identity of its own. A lot of the guns in Battlefield 3 feel kind of samey, whereas this gun does have a very distinctive sort of feel to it, and part of it's to do with the fact that the damage modeling is wildly different on this gun from other carbines and assault rifles. You don't lose. You start with low damage, but you lose very, very little of that damage total over range, so it gives it this sort of flat kill feel when it comes to the killing power that, I don't know, it's just, I like that it has a very sort of unique sense to it, and I wouldn't want to change too much about this gun. I do think, though, that the small clip size is sort of unnecessary. It's not, I don't know, yeah, I don't know, I would increase the clip size on this thing if I was DICE. But at the same time, I don't think it's horrifically underpowered. I don't think it's a horribly gimped gun. And you can definitely use it right now, especially if you're a skilled player, and if the gun is one that sort of feels right to you, you're going to be able to do work with this gun. But, I mean, just from the numbers side of things, it seems like the penalty of that 5 less damage, 1 more shot to kill at close range, is enough. It doesn't need, you know, more penalties like the small clip size layered on top of that to make up for its strength, which is that higher damage at medium range. The rate of fire is pretty high as well, but I mean that's kind of average. And, you know, once again, the recoil is pretty low, but there are a lot of guns with not much recoil in this game, especially if you know what you're doing in terms of controlling recoil. So, I mean, those are my thoughts on the gun of the game. I do quite like it. I'm quite fond of it, actually. More so than I initially was, certainly. Now that I've gotten used to using it a bit more, and I like this one. I think it's worth unlocking and playing around with, although, you know, it might not be your favorite gun. You might feel like it's really underpowered, like it completely shoots candy, you have a hard time getting kills with it. That was sort of how I felt about it initially, although I'm liking it a lot more now, as I said. So, overall, pretty dope weapon. I haven't decided how many attachment loadouts I'm going to show for this one yet. I might do 2. Because there's a couple of things I could show with this gun, because there's a couple of different ways I like to use it. I will say, for example, I mean, you can sort of think of a few things that might make sense yourself, like, you know, it's a medium range thing, so a heavy barrel-based loadout is going to make sense. It also, maybe not quite as obviously, works great with a suppressor-based loadout, because what the suppressor does, right, is it, you lose damage sooner and your damage drop-off is greater and stuff like that, but it doesn't actually change the maximum and minimum damage. So you get to the minimum damage faster, but your minimum damage doesn't actually change. It's the suppressor's effect on damage. So since this gun has a higher minimum damage than most of the carbines, it sort of ends up feeling like less of a disadvantage in some ways to have that suppressor. Sure, you're getting down to that 16 damage sooner, instead of that 20 damage, but I mean, you're only losing 4 damage, whereas with the other carbines, you're going from 25 down to 14, so you're losing 11 damage when you drop from max to minimum damage, and so you want to sort of make that drop off be as far away as possible. You want heavy barrel and stuff like that to make that not happen to you, whereas on this gun, you're not losing so much damage, it's not such a big deal. And then, wouldn't it be annoying if they hadn't fixed the spawn screen bug after all this time, the game being out? I was just thinking about that, you know, completely unrelated to what's going on in the game right now, but it would be really annoying if they just still hadn't fixed that, wouldn't it? And then, you know, random suicide, I'm not sure what actually caused that. Nothing fell on my head. There was an explosion near me, but I don't think I caused it. Anyway. Anyway. Yeah, so there's a few different good ways to use this gun. I'll probably show a couple different loadouts with it. Probably. Especially since, you know, I don't mind using it. And so those will be coming up in the next couple of days. That's all cool and good. This was a nice game on Down Van Peak. I thought it was pretty exciting when it was close, you know, on that first phase. I don't know, I cut out a lot of footage, but it was a nice close game, I thought. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you thought of the video, of course, whether you enjoyed it or not. And until next time, Triple T Cat out.